Hello and welcome to the JB&M Sports Fanatic channel. Thank you for joining me for this video. And today's video is going to be essentially covering some of the Julio Jones news that's been transpiring over the past weekend and get you up to date to make sure that you have the latest on what's transpiring with the Atlanta Falcons star receiver Julio Jones and what has really changed over the last couple of days. As obviously throughout the weekend, there's been a lot of talks going on. Some of the teams that was pretty much linked to Julio Jones a lot over the weekend. It's been the Rams and the Titans for one, as both teams have reached out to Atlanta Falcons to kind of gauge the market. We've seen AJ Brown be very vocal about his support for Julio Jones coming to the team. I mean, he even offered to see if it would be possible for him to give up his jersey number to Julio Jones, and then you've seen he's been reaching out, on Instagram, all of that, just trying to reach out and let Julio Jones know how much he really wants to play with him. He has no problem with Julio Jones being the top guy and him pretty much being the second option for the Titans, or however Julio wants to do it. And so he's definitely made a strong push for Julio Jones. And so I'm sure, most teams in the league, they obviously would love to have Julio Jones, but obviously everybody has their price. And so the Rams has been another team that, they saw a big increase in terms of the odds for landing Julio Jones over the past week. And just certainly a lot of skepticism there, especially when it comes to what's being reported from Mike Garafolo on NFL Network. And so, but with that being said, though, the Rams, they don't have, like a first round pick in 2022 or 2023, and they don't really have much cap space to take on Jones' 15.2 million guaranteed base. And so that it really wouldn't make much sense to believe that the Rams, given all these teams that are interested, that they would be the team to end up with Julio Jones. And matter of fact, as of to as of the 30th, which was not that long after this article was reported there, apparently the Rams were out on Julio Jones. So just like that over the weekend, they decided, well, actually yesterday they came to the conclusion that they are not going to be able to go after Julio Jones. And yeah, it just didn't make much sense for them financially. They don't have the assets to really go after him. And so, yeah, the fact that they don't have a first round pick until 2024, they want to hold on to their second round pick, third round picks. And so, yeah, definitely understand them being out on that. But I mean, everybody's going to want to take a look at Julio Jones. When you think of the Julio Jones situation, you can't help but compare it to what happened with Randy Moss when he was in Oakland and he wanted to get out. They were similar age in terms of where they were in their careers. And so, a lot of people, the difference was a lot of people thought that Randy Moss was done at that point of his career. So the Patriots ended up getting him for a fourth round pick. Whereas obviously, Julio Jones, we know what Julio Jones can still do. And so, he won't be going for a fourth round pick, that's for sure. I believe that the Atlanta Falcons are at this point seeking a second round pick in 2022, potentially. Those, or at least that's where it's at. Obviously, if they can get better than that, that's something that they're trying to do. But that would be something that they would, at least consider at this point. So it seems like it's all but just, a matter of time before a deal gets done. Now, which team? That remains to be seen. But another team that can come into play would be the Seattle Seahawks, and so that's another team that as of last over this weekend has heard their name get into the equation a while now. If you can picture Russell Wilson, already having DK Metcalf, already having Tyler Lockett, and then you throw in Julio Jones as well. Oh man, talk about a deadly offense right there. I mean, that's making your strength even stronger, honestly. And so just that possibility right there. I mean, we already seen, if the Rams are out on this, then the Seahawks, if they can pull this off, that will put a smile on Russell Wilson's face. Obviously, you still need to protect them with the offensive line, but getting them a weapon like that, who wouldn't love it? I mean, that's honestly would be very big right there for the Seahawks to, continue to really be able to say that they improved on offense. Honestly, that would really help with that conversation. But it obviously doesn't satisfy any needs that the Seahawks have though. And if you're going to make your team better overall in order to make that deep run, you kind of sort of need to fill some needs here. But that really makes your strength just that much more of a strength, honestly. So just try to picture that. Let's see. And so obviously, any team that does make a trade for, Julio Jones, they're going to have to be ready to probably give him a contract sooner rather than later. as just his cap implications alone for this season. Whoever lands him, they're going to be in a different kind of cap consequence. I doubt that the Atlanta Falcons are going to want to eat any of that salary. That's really what they're looking for, honestly. I mean, the biggest holdup, because obviously just a second round pick for Julio Jones, you think teams would dive on that, but they're going to have to eat the entire salary cap for Julio Jones, which means you're probably going to need to be prepared to maybe even give him a new deal. And so who knows where he stands in terms of how what he's going to be looking for, but yeah, you're definitely going to want to try to rework that. I mean, he's currently still due to 15.3 million this year, 11.5 million next year, and 11.5 million in 2023. So that's 38.3 million over the span of the next 3 years, averaging 12.7 million paid out annually. And so yeah, his current deal has an annual value of 22 million, and so the new team that would be getting him, yeah, they're going to want to work on that. Certainly for sure. I can certainly see that being one of the biggest hesitations right now for a team is obviously, no matter how great he is, I mean, that's a lot to pay one guy, especially given the fact that the injury that Julio Jones has, it's a great chance that that he had last season. It's a great chance that he probably can re-injure it or gets, knowing his career, actually, some type of injury is very possible for the upcoming year, especially over the span of 3 years. The odds that he's going to miss some games, that's very real. So that's another thing to consider, basically, for any team that goes out there and acquires him. Now, in terms of the odds for Julio Jones, the Patriots have the best odds, but there's a lot of people around the league that are, high on the Titans being a potential suitor to get Julio Jones. And so it's really been those two teams, especially since we found out that the Rams are no longer in play. And so I feel a dark horse to keep an eye out for would be teams like the Chargers. Obviously the Chargers, they already have a solid receiving core, but if you add Julio Jones, that would help take Justin Herbert to an even higher level. And so that would be a team that I would also keep an eye on as well for a dark horse. Teams like that, 49ers that clearly show that they're all in about winning right now. And so, yeah, these are some teams to keep an eye on. But the Patriots and the Titans are perhaps the top two to keep an eye out for in terms of Julio Jones services. You can't forget teams like the Indianapolis Colts as well as a receiver like Julio Jones. I mean, Carson Wentz may be able to have an MVP caliber year, or at least win comeback player of the year, if you give him Julio Jones in addition to what the Colts already have in place. And so definitely there's a lot going on there. And so and then I mean it doesn't make much sense in terms of, I guess you can say, for like salary purposes to spend that much money there. But hey, I mean, we've seen teams like the Kansas City Chiefs go, all out to try to bring in a guy like, Juju Smith-Schuster on the roster. So I'm pretty sure that they would love to get their hands on Julio Jones. And just saying, just for, hypothetical purposes, I mean, if you can picture that offense with Julio Jones involved as well, yeah, yeah. The NFL may have to stop something like that from actually going down. But as of where we stand right now, the Patriots and the Titans, those are perhaps the strongest two teams in terms of potentially landing Julio Jones as of right now in this moment. But obviously, a team like the Colts, a team like the Chargers, they can make a strong push. Even the Jaguars, you can't forget about a team like the Jaguars, who's got a lot of salary cap space, and so that's another team that potentially could go out there and grab someone like that. And so certainly gonna keep our eyes open, as this Julio Jones situation is constantly changing by the hour. And so a trade can happen, perhaps as soon as tomorrow, but definitely, sometime this week. I feel the trigger could be pulled on Julio Jones having a new team. And so this is obviously going to change the landscape of the NFL. And so I'm excited to see, how this plays out. Obviously, Julio Jones, he's a tremendous player. What he's done in the league right now so far, it's already, on that Hall of Fame level. I mean, he's one of those transcendent players that, changes the games. Many times, when they've questioned some of the top cornerbacks in the league throughout the years, and they talk about toughest receivers to cover, Julio Jones has been a name that continues to come out of their mouth because, I mean, you cannot, defend. I mean, he's got the height, he's got the speed, he's got the athletic ability. I mean, the only flaw to his game is not something that's within his control, honestly. It's durability. If it wasn't for that, I mean, he'd be even more scarier as a receiver than he already is. And so, yeah, definitely a tremendous player. And so throughout his career, we're looking at 848 catches for 12,896 yards and 60 receiving touchdowns, and a career average of over 15 yards per catch. So yeah, a lot of teams definitely want his services, and it's going to come down to the Atlanta Falcons feeling that they're getting the best deal possible, for Julio Jones services, and who's going to be willing to eat that cap that comes with Julio Jones, given the risk that, he can get injured at any moment. But with that being said, thank you so much for joining me for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, as more news continues to drop, you can be sure to find it here. So thanks again for watching, and see you guys next time.